A defining activity of the Canadian summer is camp. Many of us send our kids to camp, and camp is a good thing. Camp can literally change a kid's life for the better, and as a result, thousands of Canadians send their kids out into the woods every July and August. And so this report's going to talk briefly about some basic financial planning that can help support this great Canadian adventure called camp. And really want to look at three particular tax breaks that are available to taxpayers in sending their kids to camp. And the first one, which is the newest one, is the new Child Arts Tax Credit, which is something that can be applied to camp. And the Child Arts Tax Credit really stems from the Children's Fitness Tax Credit that came into effect in the last couple of years. And you can get some interesting dialogue on this particular credit from www.actionplan.ca, which is the Fed's discussion of their budget from 2011. And what the idea was behind the Child Arts Tax Credit is the ability of the feds to sort of better recognize the costs associated with a child attending an artistic, cultural, recreational, or developmental activity. It was something new that came in the 2011 federal budget, and it's matching the credit that's offered to fitness activities. So it's coming in at the 15% non-refundable tax rate, which means if you spend $500 on these sorts of activities, eligible activities, that your refundable tax credit will reduce your federal tax owing by about $75. And this credit is really available for a wide range of activities, activities that contribute to the child's development in regards to arts and education. And that's interesting about this particular credit is it clearly applies to sending your kid away to camp. So something for a child who's under the age of 16 that you definitely want to keep in mind as you're looking at camps to send your child to. The second type of credit I want to talk about today is the Children's Fitness Tax Credit, which also applies to camp. And it came into the federal budget a few years ago and was really targeting prescribed programs of physical activity. And so you can Google more information about the Children's Fitness Tax Credit by Googling line 365 and Children's Fitness Tax Credit, and you'll hit CRA's dialogue on this. Now, if a summer camp runs for at least 5 consecutive days, then they believe that that's good enough to qualify for this credit. There's enough physical activity at a summer camp that this credit will apply. Again, this credit is at the 15% federal tax rate, which means unless your province has matched the deduction, which some provinces have, you're looking at about $75 in tax savings from the $500 deduction. So that's the two of the three we like to talk about, the arts tax credit and the fitness tax credit. And the final one, which a lot of people aren't aware of when it comes to summer camp, is that you can apply, in many cases, just childcare deductions for sending your kid away to camp. And the childcare deduction is a fairly large deduction in Canada. You get a $10,000 of deduction if your kid is also achieving the disability tax credit. Or if your child is under the age of 7, you pick up $7,000 in childcare deductions that are available. If they're over the age of 7, $4,000. So these are some larger deductions that we're looking at relative to the fitness and the arts tax credit. And this will especially apply to those sending their kids to camp if they haven't used these deductions already during the year in other childcare facilities. And so there's two sort of main terms and conditions I want to talk about, but you really do need to pull, it's called IT 495R3, and this is the CRA bulletin that discusses their administrative position on childcare deductions. So there's more to learn, but there's two important things when it comes to summer camp I want to point out. The first is really the day programs. And in the day programs, there is a trick on deductibility. If that day program, that summer camp day program that's likely in the city, is being run where they come home at night, there's no lodging included, then what they're going to apply is a test of the level of childcare, the childcare element. Was it substantial enough to call this childcare, or was there really an educational component without, a heavy childcare side of it, sort of the safety and protection side, where it was really just like them going to school, summer school. And the trick here is if your child is younger and there's a fairly high element of childcare involved in the day camp, then you're good to go. So it's a difficult one to determine And certainly if lodging is involved, then you clearly get the deduction for childcare. So if you send your kid away to camp in the summer, then there's obviously childcare involved in that camp if they're staying overnight. This particular deduction would apply. Now, this is pretty darn significant if you haven't used the childcare deduction yet in any particular tax year, because we're talking about, again, $4,000 for children over the age of 7, $7,000 for kids under the age of 7. So definitely worth doing some research and looking at that one. Well, I hope that gives you some things to research with regards to tax planning with regards to camp this summer, and whatever the experience ends up being from a tax perspective, I'm sure that from a human perspective that your kids will have a great time at camp.